This is the internal broadcast for the Haven community, and today is day 7 since the fall. My name is Nathan Cartwright, and I am on communications and watch coordination. If you are hearing this message, your receiver is working, and we are still transmitting.
I am Rachel Ashford, responsible for logistics and clinic coordination. This broadcast is intended for our people on Haven, and it includes power and water status, clinic updates, security notes, runner reports, and verified observations from outside the lake. If you are outside Haven and receiving this transmission, do not approach the island directly. Follow the approach protocol. Stop at the marker point and wait for instructions. You will not be waved in because we keep this place alive by staying disciplined.
Our broadcast window is 10 minutes on and 2 minutes off, repeating on the hour until sunset. Please conserve batteries, share receivers, and keep radio volume low. Today's verification phrase is clear water, and you must provide the correct response in order to proceed beyond the marker.
We will begin with island status, starting with power, then water, and then the clinic. Between segments, we are also documenting what we know about the fall and the infected, because accurate information prevents panic, and panic gets people hurt. Current power status is stable, with the solar microgrid operating normally at the moment, and the battery bank reading 78% at first light. We will continue running essential loads only, so please do not use personal heaters, and do not charge devices unless you are scheduled to do so.
Current water status is steady. The lake intake is filtered and boiled through the communal system, and everyone is expected to follow it. If you bypass that system, you are risking illness that we cannot treat easily, and you are increasing the burden on the clinic.
We have one bite case in isolation at the Haven Isolation Clinic, and the patient remains under hourly monitoring. There were no new bites overnight, and we want to keep it that way. So sleeves, gloves, and caution are not optional.
Moving on to security and access, and I want everyone to remember the tone here. This is not a command broadcast, and we are not pretending we are an army. We are neighbors trying to keep a small place alive, which means we do the simple rules the same way every time, even when we are tired. Security status remains elevated because the outside is still moving and we do not get second chances. If you are assigned to watch, treat it like you are protecting your own kitchen and your own children, because that
is complete on the East Orchard line, and the repair crew finished the last patch at dusk. If your name is on the repair list, report after this cycle, because we are rotating who does the work so no one burns out, and so everyone knows how the fence holds together. Night routine remains the same. After dark, no one moves beyond the inner path alone, and no one goes down to the shoreline without a partner. If you need to step outside for any reason, you tell your neighbor first, and if you see someone breaking that rule, you do not argue on the spot. You report it quietly, and we deal with it without making noise.
gate rule is unchanged. No one opens a gate by themselves, and no one opens a gate because they feel sorry in the moment. If someone is at the marker, we handle it in daylight when possible, and we handle it by the book, because the book is the only thing standing between us and panic. Speaking of the marker, this is your reminder that the causeway is not a normal road. The landstrip floods when the water rises, and when it is flooded, it is not a shortcut and it is not a test of bravery. We have already lost one dog to that water, and we will not lose a person because someone wanted to prove they could.
If you are hearing this from inside Haven, and you are new, or you have been here a week and still keep expecting someone else to arrive and take charge, this is the part you need to hear. The infected are not clever, but they are consistent, and if you understand what they respond to, you stop giving them free advantages. What we know, from runners and watch, is that they are slow-moving unless provoked. Provoked can mean a sudden loud sound, repeated noise, or a close visual trigger. And it can also mean scent, which is the part people underestimate. Their eyesight does not seem sharp at distance. They do not pick out details the way a person would, but they track motion well enough that moving in the open is an invitation, and waving your arms to get someone's attention is not help. It is bait.
Hearing is strong enough that they will turn and drift toward repeated sound, and they will gather over time if the sound continues. That is why we do not shout across the fields, and that is why we do not slam metal, and that is why we do not practice shooting anywhere near home unless there is a real emergency. Smell is the bigger danger. Sweat, blood, waste, and food carry, especially when the wind is steady. If you have been running, if you are bleeding, or if you have food exposed, you can be tracked, and you can lead them back without meaning to. If you are on a run, or if you are working the shoreline.
What keeps us alive here is not luck. It is distance, water, and patience. This island is not easy to reach, and it is not supposed to be. The water between us and the shore drops fast, deeper than it looks, and in most places, it goes well past 4 feet within a few steps. The bottom is uneven, soft in some places, sharp in others, and cold enough to slow anyone who tries to cross it on instinct alone. People who do not know the lake assume they can wade it. They cannot. Not safely and not quickly. And the causeway is not a road you can count on. It is a narrow strip that appears and disappears depending on water level, wind, and weather. Some days it is exposed for hours. Some days it barely shows itself at all. Sometimes it looks passable and then drops away under your feet halfway across. That uncertainty is not a flaw. It is part of the defense.
That is why the checkpoint marker is on the shore, not on the island. We do not let people approach the waterline and then decide what to do. Anyone coming from outside stops at the marker, stays there, and waits. The marker is where we talk, where we observe, and where we decide whether the door ever opens. By the time someone is close enough to argue, it is already too late to make a careful choice. If the water is high, the island is cut off completely, there is no safe crossing, no improvised path, and no second chance if you slip. If the water is low, the strip is still watched, still narrow, and still controlled. One direction in, one direction out, and no hiding places in between. That is what makes this place different from the shore. We say this not to scare anyone, but to explain why we are still here when so many other places emptied out or tore themselves apart. On the shore, people were forced into crowds, into noise, into rushed decisions. Here, water slows everything down. It gives us time to think before we act, and time is the only advantage fear cannot steal. And this matters when we talk about the infected, because the danger is not that they will suddenly appear on the island. They cannot swim. They do not cross open water. What they do is accumulate, they linger, they follow what is put in front of them and keep following it, which means the real risk is not noise here. The real risk is what gets brought close.
Is not a flaw. It is part of the defense. Hold on a second. All right, Rachel's been called over to the clinic. All right. Chloe's here with me.
That's why the island works. Not because it is perfect, but because it is hard to reach, hard to rush, and hard to overwhelm, and we keep things efficient. This is Chloe Harper, joining Haven Island Internal Broadcast.
If you are new, it can feel frustrating, even cruel, to stand on one side of water and not immediately help someone on the other. That feeling is human. Acting on it without thinking is how safe places stop being safe. We hold the line so that this place remains somewhere people can arrive to later, not just once. And if you have been here a while and you are tired, and you are thinking that maybe we could relax just a little, just this once, remember this. Every routine you are tempted to skip is written in the memory of something that went wrong somewhere else. We are not imagining threats, we are respecting patterns. That is why the island works. Not because it is perfect, but because it is hard to reach, hard to rush, and hard to overwhelm.
Moving on to the outside conditions, from the island this morning, visibility across the lake is better than it has been the last couple of days. The air is clearer and the smoke is lifting higher before it spreads, which makes things easier to see and harder to forget. Westport is still burning, but not all at once. You can see it in sections. One part of the shoreline will be dark, almost peaceful, and then a few minutes later there's a glow somewhere else, like the city is breathing in fits. There's no single front anymore. It's pockets, clusters, places where people tried to hold on and places where they ran. The watch reported movement along the far industrial edge just after dawn. Not infected in the water, not crossing, just gathering where streets narrow and sound echoes. They don't move like a wave, they stack, they wait. And that's the part people underestimate. Nothing dramatic happens all at once. It builds. A street gets louder. A corner gets crowded. Someone fires a shot thinking it will solve a problem, and it only redraws it somewhere else. From here, we get to see the pattern without being inside it.
We've also had 2 separate smoke columns collapse overnight, which usually means fuel ran out or there was nothing left to burn. That doesn't mean those areas are safe. It just means the fire moved on before the infected did.
And that distance is doing a lot of work for us. It lets us watch without chasing answers, and it lets us learn without paying in blood. That's not cowardice. That's survival with a memory.
If you're listening and wondering whether the city will quiet down, the honest answer is that it will, eventually. Not because it's healing, but because there's less left to break. Until then, we stay here. We plant, we watch, we keep the doors locked.
That's the outside picture for this cycle. Next up, we'll go over runner status and what's planned for today, so everyone knows who's moving and who's staying put. Before we move on to runner reports, we need to share a brief update from the clinic. We do this here, together, so no one has to hear it secondhand. The individual who was being held in isolation after a confirmed bite has passed. The clinic team acted once it was clear there was no longer a choice, and it was handled quickly and respectfully. There was no breach, and there is no risk to the island. If you were close to them, or if this brings something up for you, please don't sit with it alone. Check in with someone. That is part of how we keep going.
This is not something routine makes easier. What routine does give us is the knowledge that hard decisions are not delayed until they become dangerous.
That's all we're going to say about it on air. At sundown tonight, we'll hold a remembrance call, as we do, to name the people Haven has lost. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. Being present counts.
Moving on to the runner reports for this cycle. Runner Team A returned yesterday afternoon from the North Shore route. They moved light, stayed quiet, and kept good spacing. They recovered canned goods, dry staples, and basic medical supplies, including gauze and disinfectant. No injuries, no close encounters. They reported scattered infected along the shoreline, but nothing concentrated or tracking. Runner Team B turned back before completing their route. They encountered increasing movement near the old highway cut and made the right call to disengage. They also reported hearing gunfire further inland, not close to the lake, but steady enough to suggest people are still trying to solve problems loudly.
Today's outbound is Runner Team C, scheduled for late morning if conditions hold. Their objective is the Lakeside Pharmacy Strip. Priority items are antibiotics, pain management, and sealed medical supplies that have not been compromised. If the strip looks wrong, if movement feels wrong, they turn back. No exceptions. If you are on Team C and listening right now, remember this. The run is not a test of courage. It is a delivery job. You bring back what the island needs, or you bring back yourselves. Both count as success, and for everyone else, a reminder. Runners don't leave the island behind when they go out. If someone comes back quiet, or short-tempered, or just tired, give them space first and questions later. We carry enough weight already.
That's runner status for this cycle. We'll continue with routine notes and assignments shortly.